worried and concerned about your educational development and interested in building a sound academic education and professional career in accountancy? ACES Institute of Accountancy and Management here offers you an opportunity for a new beginning. At ACES Institute of Accountancy and Management, accounting professional students and secondary school leavers can take advantage of our numerous programs to qualify as professional accountants and specialists in different fields of learning. With our conducive learning environment, competent and experienced professional lecturers to see students through their examinations successfully. Classes for secondary school leavers starts in January 2019, while registration is ongoing for foundation and accountancy programs and other professional examination courses. For inquiries and registration, you can visit our corporate office at Niger House, UAC Building, 11th floor, 3 to 5 Odunlami Street, off Marina, Lagos, or email at icanedu@aces.org. or our website at www.acersim.org or call 0703 086 8455 0817 079 0833. A new interactive television program by the International Center for Tax Research and Development is to help educate Nigerians and create an awareness on socio-economic and political issues for a new order in promoting good governance, growth and development for Nigeria. This is our focus, our mission and collective aspiration on the Constitution. A new television series and an initiative of the International Center for Tax Research and Development on Lagos Weekend Television every Sunday from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. on DSTV Channel 256, GoTV Channel 90, Star Times Channel 118 and Concert on Channel 950. Do join us. Welcome again on yet another time out on the Constitution, coming to you on the platform of Lagos Weekend Television. Today, like every other day, we'll talk about issues that has to do with policies and of course constitutional matters as it affects the good people of this great country called the Nigerian state. Today, our focus is on pre-education, rather preschool age, and we want to take a look at policies in this concern. I have distinguished personnel, guests here who are competent, so to speak, to handle matters of this sort as it affects our children, judging by their years of experience and what they represent in the society of today. Sitting close to me, it's a distinguished Nigerian woman. I just said that I'm so proud of her. She's Mrs. Olunaye Oluwole. She stands out by all standard for what she represents. What's a big welcome to you on the program today. You. And again, I also want to welcome Dr. Mrs. Titilayo Fowoko. It's also a great honor to have you.
Thank you.
And Mrs. Morenike Tejuade Babentina Shai, it's a great honor to have you join me on the program today.
Thank you very much.
Well, distinguished personnel, our discuss today is on preschool age. We want to take a look at policies of government, constitutional matters concerning this, and of course, how this must be attended to the way it should be. Let's start with Dr. Mrs. Titilayo Fowoko. What will be your concern, or rather, what is your concern, and how will you express what should be done in this regard concerning preschool age?
Thank you very much. When we talk about the preschool age, I tried to look into the national policy on education, and I found that government have plans for that level of education. And looking at the implementation guidelines, there are things like establishing preschool section, pre-primary section in the public schools, and encouraging private participation in those that area. Also making provision for training of pre-primary education teachers, as well as ensuring that the medium of instruction for preschool is the mother tongue or the language of the immediate community. Now, looking at all this, the question is, how well are we doing on this?
How well are we doing on this?
In reality, are we really going by these policy guidelines, or we're just having it as a document just for reference purposes? That's the crux of what we're trying to look at. In the environment, in the society, are we really, really achieving these policy guidelines? Is there a monitoring of the standard, or are preschool children are just left to just walk around the streets, looking at the urban area, looking at the rural areas? So are we really there on the preschool education?
So should we ask you, are we really there? What will be your response?
If I would assess the way we are, we're far from it. We still have a lot to do. in this area.
With regards to?
With regards to the preschool education.
And what should we do?
Well, I think the government has to go back to the drawing board on this, because there are a lot of things for this. Local government, a part to play in this, because we have a lot of rural children who are on the streets, who actually does not know what it looks like to even have the basic, that level of relationship and interaction in a school environment. For instance, there are things that has to do with government, communities, and teacher association coming together to make sure that it works. We have a lot of children on the road. So these are things that we're trying to look at today, to say how can government fulfill the obligation to the society when it comes to this objective. And I know the Constitution also makes provision for this.
Yeah, I think we can look at the Constitution.
Yes, yes, the Constitution.
Yes,
what does it have? Let's take a look at that.
Under Section 17(3), F and H relates to what government needs to do for children and young ones. Under Section 17(3)(F), it says that children, young persons, and the aged are protected against any exploitation whatsoever and against moral and material neglect. The Constitution is saying what the state must do, how they must direct their policy to ensure that young ones are not exploited and they are not neglected. Also, it says that the evolution and promotion of family life is encouraged, which means that government must ensure that the evolution and promotion of family life is encouraged. And we can do a lot of things by that. You'll find that as of now, a lot of working mothers do not have enough time with their children.
They don't.
They don't.
Precisely, they don't.
I know in other climes, you can be with your child for as much as 2 years, 1.5, 2 years, which is very good. 1 year, 1.5, 2 years. So we need to have a policy whereby when you have newborn babies, the working mother is allowed to stay with the child, maybe for a period of 1 year. Full pay, of course, because children are part of national development. So we need to sacrifice for them, time and money for them. And companies that are paying salaries for these absentee mothers because they are staying with the children, government must allow, taxation, the taxes. They must allow tax relief for them. Because it's part of national development. So if you look at the education, the Constitution on education objective, it reads, and I'm quoting, "Government shall direct its policy towards ensuring that there are equal and adequate educational opportunities at all levels." That is Section 18(1). And Section 18(2) says, government shall promote science and technology. Section 83 says, government shall strive to eradicate illiteracy, and to this end, government shall, as and when practicable, provide free, compulsory, and universal primary education. They did not mention preschool there. And our Constitution must recognize that the development of any citizen starts from that preschool. So it has to be there. In other climes, they will say from 2 years.
Specifically stated.
They will specifically state it. 2 years to 5 years, or 2 years to 6 years, because primary school starts from 6 years.
That's right.
So what should we do between that age 2 and beginning of the 6th year when children should go to school? That has to be stated in our Constitution. It's omitted now. Another thing I just find out here, under that Section 18(3) A to C, we have free, compulsory, and universal primary education. Free, that is when government is able, is financially able, they will provide free compulsory and universal primary education, free university education, free adult literacy program. There is no free secondary school in our constitution. So that has been omitted. That has to be included, because the first thing that the constitution says under section 18(1) is that there will be equal and adequate educational opportunities at all levels. So they cannot now ignore secondary school education.
So we need to establish that for government and those in authorities. We need to establish that
the preschool should be in the constitution. What has to be done? But like the policy she read out, this has to be between government and private sector. And we cannot just believe that government is the one that is going to do everything. Our local government, we also need to support the local government, whether the LCDAs are doing a lot of work. But with what we have seen, there are a lot of things that are actually going on with implementation or non-implementation of the policy of government. And I'm sure Mrs. Oluwole will
for Mrs. Oluwole, I wish I have the time to read her profile. She has an intimidating profile. I would have loved people to hear that, but because of time. But let's leave that for another time, because we'll always have you back to talk about all the issues. Now let's look at your contributions with regards to the subject matter of discourse.
Yes, I would like to add my voice to what have been said previously. I think the omission starts from the government and the people not recognizing the preschool age as the foundation of any individual. And once that particular age is affected, it defines who you are ultimately. When you look at individuals and how they are today, you don't look at them, what they are today. You look at their background and you go back to what happened, from preschool. Preschool definition, like Mrs. Babintin Ashai said, from 2, I would say 1 to, about 3 or 4. That's early childhood education.
That's right.
Emphasis needs to be put on that, because what you see even in the urban and the rural areas, you find that for children who are in that age bracket, they're still tied to their caregivers, who are their mothers, who are the primary caregivers. And for some of them that do not have employment in the formal sector, you have them straddle, the children are beside the road, they're with the mothers, they're selling, they're vulnerable,
we
they're
see
open,
this all over the place.
And from that, the child is being educated in the other way, with the wrong values. The child
as well
is also open to social vices.
That's right.
In terms of language, in terms of abuse.
That's right.
Abuse can be in so many forms. So, and then you find out that the responsibility in other climes is actually, there's some countries in Europe, in America, in Latin America, the responsibility is actually jointly taken by the government and the private sector. And most times, they have different strategies.
Because they're also a part of the stakeholder.
Yes,
they are stakeholders.
Some would be purely funded by the government, while some are, in collaboration with the private sector. And the strategies include providing kindergarten, services, daycare centers, after school, just so that the mothers can have, comfort that their children are being educated. And of course, they also have factored a lot of things. Language, they have factored even the income. You find out that they have taken into consideration
No.
They factored families that have low income,
okay,
and families that are middle income, and so there's provision for
all
those,
afford.
yes. So it doesn't have to be that, oh, you are in the rural areas, you can't access early childhood education for your child, or you have a language barrier. For instance, in America, Spanish they have understood that the Hispanics have, a huge representation in their, the demography. I mean, the demography of America, the people.
Yes.
So, and they have understood that for children, they have included Spanish as one of the languages to introduce at preschool, so that the transition from home to school is easier for the child. So,
and giving them that same sense of belonging,
exactly,
their historical background.
Yes. So, but what I see in the Constitution, there are a lot of lapses. We need to go back to the drawing board. We need to look at, policies in this area for early childhood education, and where we are missing it, we need to begin to plug the holes and also provide, services that will take care, because the children you neglect today are the hoodlums tomorrow, are the serial killers tomorrow, are the kidnappers, because, you find out that no kidnapper wakes up to say, I'm a kidnapper, or no serial killer, or no, ritualist.
Yeah, also the corruption practitioners.
Yes. So you find out that if you do a trace,
I like that word, corruption practitioners.
If you do a trace to individuals, you would see that there is a lacuna somewhere in the educational. I think the curriculum is not history of that child. So it's not the education of the four walls of the classroom,
the societal aspect of it that was missing.
How well do we capture preschoolers? Immediately they're transitioning from home out into the society, because they are going to be the next leaders of tomorrow. And what kind of people are we?
So that little gap, that little time
is
means
very,
a lot.
Important.
She mentioned something about language.
That's right.
And that is something that Nigerian government must learn about. Even in America, they found that the Hispanic, they need to have special language orientation, and they have offered that. One thing that, when I was doing research, one thing that I observed was that at the time that Nigeria was signing the treaty to become independent, it was accepted that if we want to be part of Commonwealth, we must retain English language.
Yes.
But I'm surprised. We have Tanzania, who is also part of Commonwealth, but they are speaking Swahili. They are teaching their children in Swahili language. At least I was there for 5 years, and that Swahili is something that they retain. So what is wrong with Nigeria? Even in our educational provisions here, there is nothing that established in our Constitution. There is nothing that has established that our language is more important than English language.
I
because
think that was addressed in the guidelines. The guidelines for the education policy says that each of those children, the medium of instruction should be the mother tongue or the language of the immediate community. From research, it's observed that when you start at that age with the mother tongue and gradually transit into English language, they tend to understand better, because they are familiar with the mother tongue. We are not telling them what it is in English, then they cannot appreciate what they mean the mother tongue, right. and this even helps us with our culture. Because when we lose sight of the culture, we forget where we are coming from. And we find that a lot of times, because children don't know their background, when they get out there, they cannot proudly say, I'm a Nigerian, and this is who I am, and this is where I come from.
Like the Indian man or the Indian
woman. So anywhere they go, that association is broken. Yes. And we have to get it.
And that gives some kind of psychological effect, something. Maybe something like that.
So we need to have that type, because that's why in the policy guideline it says that it talks about mother tongue.
Why is the policy saying one thing and in practice we are doing something else. You know,
there
should be monitoring.
I think, yes, just like you rightly mentioned, monitoring is very, very essential, and adherence to these policies. But when you look at the landscape of the educational system in Nigeria, we tend to 8 out of 10 put the round peg in the square hole. So that is why we keep going round and round in circles. Whereas in other climes, developed climes, you find out that those that are manning the educational system are the educational practitioners who ensure that the policies are adhered to strictly. They monitor, they evaluate, they go back to the drawing board, where have they missed it, and all of that. But in a situation where at times you have probably an education minister who knows nothing about education policies or even education, so he has to rely on
counsel or advice,
counsel, advice, and that takes us, back 10 years. It's like we take one step forward and 10 steps back.
And it is also important that anybody who wants to use an advisor must also have knowledge, must be competent. Because if somebody is advising you and you are not competent, you take a wrong advice.
Yes,
and that is the problem we're having in Nigeria today.
Competence is good, ma'am, but also experience is another thing.
You can.
Competence is good, experience is another thing.
But it's another thing.
It's not going to be possible for you to be competent in any subject if you have not gone through the.
We have a lot of.
You won't be competent if you have not actually gone through the system. If you have not had the experience, if you have not had the exposure, because competence actually is the result of your experience, your exposure, your knowledge. So what I have seen in Nigeria is that we've been having ministers, we've been having commissioners who know nothing about education, who have not gone through the rudiments of education, and who are not actually willing.
So they can't really understand how the policies should work.
And the way we work in this country is very unfortunate. We hire people as ministers, as commissioners, not necessarily for the contribution they are going to make, but because we can, the president can use them, the governor can use them, which is wrong. We want people who have that competence, that knowledge, that technical know-how,
that specialized
to be in charge of our education.
And this affects the curriculum.
It affects the curriculum.
Because if you look at the curriculum that we have for there is no curriculum for pre-primary. And we are talking about foundation. The curriculums we have now that we're operating starts from the primary, secondary, but when you now come to pre-primary, the real action that should be at the pre-primary should be in form of play. They learn words, they learn letters, they learn how to write,
they learn about their environment
in form of play. Now, do we really have a curriculum that speaks to this?
The play will capture their interest, and
because that's what will capture their interest. And as they play, and you say A for apple, B for ball, they get to learn this.
I mean, we must make sure that we are even using our language. It's already in the policy. Government must ensure that it is done. And another problem that I have seen is that government believes that it can do it all, which is wrong. Education is not a business venture. It's a social venture. Government must understand that. You must bring all these educators who are helping us in building the young ones. You are going to give them. For me, I believe if government is going to participate, if there's going to be education voucher, let the education voucher be for every child. Not that only when you go to primary school, because we must have commitment. And the only reason why we're having a lot of corruption, a lot of money stolen, is because we are not putting the money where we should put the money. Because if we are planning for preschool, for example, and government knows that this is how much it's going to cost, there will be no money for anybody to steal. And there are so many issues. that I believe we need to tackle with preschool.
Yes.
They even at work, in some climes, you find that there is what do you call it?
Childminders.
Yes, childminders. They have
crèche.
Crèche. Close to the mother, so that the mother can go and check the child. That is what you call development of the child.
And I think on that,
it's a sacrifice.
I've checked something on that.
Yes.
In parts of like parts of the research I've done, I've tried to look at the level of kindergarten, so-called kindergarten we operate. You have a lot of people who say they have this preschool setup, no standard, environment not well kept. Some children are dropped because they're troublesome.
No, so let them sleep.
Let them just sleep. And then you have cases where the environment is not that conducive, so the child does not even learn the healthy habits, which is part of what the guideline is saying. Part of what they should be learning at that preschool is healthy habits, so that they take care of it. They don't use a cup that has dropped on the floor. But when you have a case where the caregivers or the preschool coordinators are not monitored, you don't get the standard, and it's not achieved.
We can have a lot of volunteers. We have a lot of retired teachers who are willing to help the government, but the government is not even, willing, to take them on.
I think one thing that is missing is capacity development. In the sense that when you talk about teachers and you talk about this preschool age, that particular age bracket is very sensitive.
Very, very sensitive.
And if you do not have the right, resources, human resources, you're not going to have the right results. So in addition to the provision of daycare centers, kindergarten, community centers, you also have the issue of the right personnel to man these.
That is the job for local government.
No, not only local government, because we have a three-tier government.
Yeah, but the local government, for primary, pre, and primary,
yes,
it's essential, because she is talking about the policy that is there.
Yes.
You won't tell Abuja to come and start looking at what is going on around maybe Ikorodu or Orile.
It's more of a local government.
It's more of a local government.
Yes.
The local government should be able to sensitize people, in their communities, educate them, develop that capacity. Teachers we have a lot of retired teachers.
So in what area? Let's still
I'm thinking it's not only in the local government, we also have in the state. Because if we only say in the local government, yes, a lot needs to be done at the state level. But then, when you look at at the local government level, when you look at the state, it's only the privileged few that have access to this preschool that we're talking about. So a huge chunk, they're out of this, early childhood education. So that's why you have them on the street, crawling, being put at vulnerable places. So I believe,
been exposed to.
Yes, I believe that we should, harmonize at the state level and at the local government level. The local government level, definitely, we have a lot to do because, of course, facilities, human resources, opportunities are not there. So there's need to sensitize. There's need to.
Do we have punishment for parents who leave their children out of school?
I have one of my colleagues here now who should be.
that is also not in the Constitution, where you have the parent. I mean, in developed climes, if you abuse a child, it's not physical abuse. There's emotional abuse. There's mental abuse. There's neglect.
Yes.
I understand that in some countries, if you have 3 children and they're all under the age of 10, you can't leave them at home. I once had a friend that said, "Oh, I have to be back at home."
Well, my time is up. I must wrap up this because we have to look at other issues. But in a quick one, your submissions, one after the other. What will be your submission and what will be your take?
For me, it is important that we rethink on our Constitution, because the Constitution is that basic instrument that helps development, that is between the government and the people. You have a policy, yes, when you have policies, you find situations that government may follow that policy or may not follow it, and there is no continuity. You know, one government come with very nice policy, another government come and dump that policy. But once it is in the Constitution,
it can be changed.
It can be changed.
Thank you. Dr. Fowoka, your
for me, I just want to take a cue from what Chief Mrs. Binti Ashaya have just said, to say that, fine, once the Constitution is dealt with, the policies have to be implemented. They should move away from having paper document to a workable document, to something that we can see the physical evidence of that implementation.
Mark and impact in
and
the
we
lives
see a
of
difference. And as far as I'm concerned, we should revisit preschool education. It is necessary, it's a formative age, and that's what can help us to create that good level of citizenship we're looking for.
Mrs. Oluwole.
Yes, I think for me, it would be for the government to understand the need to put the round peg in the round hole across board, in education, in implementation, in monitoring, and also in operations. So if we have the right people at the right places, I believe, of course, they will be able to translate what the Constitution says and then implement it. So for me, it's CapDev, capacity development, and of course, putting the right, peg in the right hole.
Well, thank you very much. Unfortunately, there is no man in between except my very self. I want to thank you for your contributions, for your wealth of experience, and definitely we pray that this country, from all we've said, will make tap into what we've been saying to make the difference for our socio-economic growth and development. We say a big thank you, and hoping that sometime again we have you all back to have this discussed again in this direction. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Well, that's part of what we have to do on the Constitution. For now, we'll take another quick break, and we'll be back after this time out.
Are you worried and concerned about your educational development and interested in building a sound academic education and professional career in accountancy? ACERS Institute of Accountancy and Management here offers you an opportunity for a new beginning. At ACERS Institute of Accountancy and Management, accounting professional students and secondary school leavers can take advantage of our numerous programs to qualify as professional accountants and specialists in different fields of learning. With our conducive learning environment, competent and experienced professional lecturers to see students through their examinations successfully. Classes for secondary school leavers starts in January 2019, while registration is ongoing for foundation and accountancy programs and other professional examination courses. For inquiries and registration, you can visit our corporate office at Niger House, UAC Building, 11th floor, 3 to 5 Odunlami Street, off Marina, Lagos, or email at icanedu@acers.org. or our website at www.acersim.org or call 0703 086 8455 0817 079 0833. That the labor of our heroes past will not be left in vain requires our collective efforts as a people. Join us on the discourse of issues and ideas on the Constitution, an interactive television program by the International Center for Tax Research and Development, in providing a new socio-economic and political order for Nigeria's growth and development. You can reach us on the following social media platforms for your comments, views, opinions, and contributions to help the government and the people build a new Nigeria for the benefit of all.
Good afternoon, viewers. Welcome to the maiden edition of International Center for Tax Research and Development, the tax segment. The tax segment is made up of two sections. We have the public enlightenment section and the tax news. Today, we'll be focusing on the public enlightenment section, and we'll bring to the public Nigerian tax system. So we will tell you about the Nigerian tax system. The Nigerian tax system is made up of four main components. We have the tax policy, we have the tax laws and tax regulations and circulars, we have the tax administration, and the taxpayers. These are the four main components of the Nigerian tax system. The tax policy is a set of general direction of taxation for all taxable individual, business, and products in Nigeria. The tax policy is a broad-based policy, and it could be to increase indirect tax and to reduce direct taxation. Lately, there's a revised national tax policy that was approved by the Federal Executive Council, and it's very good for us to know about the tax policy, which is different from the initial tax policy that we have. Now, the tax administrators are individuals that makes use of the tax laws, the Company Income Tax Act, the Personal Income Tax Act, the Capital Gain Tax Act to implement the revenue generation of the federal government. So the tax administrators, they are the Federal Inland Revenue Service, the State Internal Revenue Service, and the local government tax collector, which are different from administration. So it's very good for us to know the difference between tax administrators and the tax collector. The tax administrator makes use of the tax law to ensure that revenue is generated for the government. The tax collector, mainly, they work at the local government level, and their aim is to collect revenue generation at the local government level. At the federal level, the tax administrators is called Federal Inland Revenue Service. At the state level, we have the State Internal Revenue Service. And these are the two main levels of tax administrator. And at the local government level, they are called tax collectors, and their main aim is to collect tax. So I'll also bring to you the types of tax regulation we have. The tax regulation and the circulars are also part of the Nigerian tax system. Now, we have different kind of tax law, and you need to be aware of it. So, and because this affects your business, we have the Company Income Tax, we have the Personal Income Tax Act, withholding tax regulation, value-added tax, and we have various circulars and notices issued by the State Internal Revenue Services, Federal Internal Revenue Services to the public. Now, I want to tell you the types of taxation we have on a final note. It's good to know the types of tax so that you know what your company is exposed to. As a company, as an individual, you're exposed to taxation. Now, we have company income tax. This tax for business income. And we have personal income tax. If you are engaged in employment or in business and you are generating income, you are exposed to personal income tax. We also have withholding tax. And take note that withholding tax is an advance payment of tax. It's not a separate tax. We have the value-added tax. This is a tax on taxable goods and services. We have the capital gain tax, a tax on capital transaction. We have like property, plant, and equipment, assets. These are capitals. And we have education tax, and this is tax mainly for education, tertiary education, which is chargeable on accessible profit. And we have the petroleum profit tax. This is mainly for companies in the upstream sector. We won't give you the details for now. In our next episode, we'll be going inwards. We'll be giving you further details. But it's very good for you to know that these are the key types of tax that we have. Of course, you have the stamp duties and other levies, like the National Technological Information Levies that are also applicable. But the main taxes that we have are the company income tax, personal income tax, withholding tax, value-added tax, capital gain tax, education tax, petroleum profit tax. So it's good for you to know your tax exposure. In our next episode, we'll be looking at each of these type of taxes, and we'll be giving some key provisions in them. I want you to watch out for the next episode. Thank you for listening.
Are you worried and concerned about your educational development and interested in building a sound academic education and professional career in accountancy? ASA's Institute of Accountancy and Management here offers you an opportunity for a new beginning. At ASA's Institute of Accountancy and Management, accounting professional students and secondary school leavers can take advantage of our numerous programs to qualify as professional accountants and specialists in different fields of learning. With our conducive learning environment, competent and experienced professional lecturers to see students through their examinations successfully. Classes for secondary school leavers starts in January 2019, while registration is ongoing for foundation and accountancy programs and other professional examination courses. For inquiries and registration, you can visit our corporate office at Niger House, UAC Building, 11th floor, 3 to 5 Odunlami Street, off Marina, Lagos, or email at icanedu@asas.org. or our website at www.asasim.org or call 0703 086 8455 0817 079 0833. That the labor of our heroes past may not be left in vain requires our collective efforts as a people. Join us on the discourse of issues and ideas on the Constitution, an interactive television program by the International Center for Tax Research and Development in providing a new socio-economic and political order for Nigeria's growth and development. You can reach us on the following social media platforms for your comments, views, opinions, and contributions to help the government and the people build a new Nigeria for the benefit of all.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. It's still the Constitution, and we're still taking a look at the subject of discuss. But in this concern with the youth wing, we have this belief that the youth must also have a voice, and the essence of this program is equally to create a voice for the youth so that we can take advantage of their own experience and also their counsel and connect all of this in the synergy to give meaningful life and impact into what we do. For our youth today, we'll be looking at the aspect of curriculum development, a case for civic education and history. And sitting close to me to have this discuss, I have the chairman of the youth wing of the International Center for Tax Research and Development, Mr. Madwe Buchi Obina Emmanuel. He's an associate chartered accountant. It's good to have you back again on the program.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And sitting close to him is Aduloju Oluwatofumi Isaac. He's a 400 level student of law at the University of Lagos. And Isaac has been a potent intern in taxation, human rights advocacy, and of course alternative dispute resolution specialist. That's a young man with that. I think that's a good one for such interest in that specialized area. I say big welcome to you as well. Well, we are also gender sensitive, and we are happy that at least for once we have a change in this direction, where we have Moreni Keji Akinsheye. She's a 500 level law student at Babcock University, and she's an experienced public speaker and debater, and she's so passionate about youth development and economic progress, particularly with respect to health policies in Nigeria. That's a very unique one. Thank you so very much, madam, having you here. Join us for this discuss. Well, don't let me be partial. Let's start with the lady. What is your own understanding, and what will be your contribution for we to understand and put on records that which must be so done in terms of curriculum development, looking at a case for civic education and history in our schools of today?
Okay, looking at the existing curriculum in Nigeria with regards to civic education and history and how it has evolved over a decade, it's very glaring that no serious attention has been given to civic education and history, in the sense that about a decade ago, history was scrapped as a subject from the curriculum. And it was not just until March this year that the Minister of Education reintroduced history as a compulsory subject in primary and secondary schools. Now, this goes as well with civic education, because it was just in 2014 that it was reintroduced as a compulsory subject to be taken at the primary and the junior secondary school levels. And this has had, the absence of these subjects in our school curriculum has had an immense impact on the moral standards of the youth in Nigeria.
The moral standard of the youths in Nigeria, meaning we've lost values because we did not take cognizance of the historical perspective of what should be.
Exactly. We've lost a lot of value, and it's evident in every little thing we do. It's evident that people who didn't have these basic norms put in them at the foundational levels have grown to become something so distant from what I can term being an ideal citizen. We see it on the roads, we see it in environmental sanitation, we see it in traffic, we see it in how
our ways of behavior.
Exactly. So
as attitudes and character things.
Exactly. So it has become paramount for these subjects to be put into our curriculum, not just put in, but implemented, in the sense that we don't just teach the youth what it is to be a good citizen. We don't just teach them about their duties and their rights, but we teach them how to practicalize these things in our day-to-day lives. So it shouldn't just be for the sake of writing an examination or for the sake of passing it in your WAEC examinations. It should be the fact that every single citizen, starting from primary school levels, should be taught what it is exactly to be a Nigerian. We should be taught about our heritage. We should be taught about our culture. Because if we are to be
and our identity as a people.
Exactly. And if we are to be the future leaders of tomorrow, we need to know about the past. We need to know about how this great country called Nigeria came to be. We need to know about the past errors so we don't repeat them.
And even about efforts of our heroes past as well.
Because most youth are consumed in social constructs, in social trends. They idolize musicians and actors as opposed to looking into the people that actually made the sacrifices for Nigeria. So it's very important for us to pay so much attention to this and ensure that it brings about the betterment of our nation. Because if every individual takes on the responsibility through civic education to be a better citizen, then Nigeria will be a better place as a whole.
I want to agree with you indeed. Let's now share the view of Madwebuchi. What will be your contribution and what's your own position in this regard?
Yeah, that's a good question, sir. If you look at the data, let's look at some key figures, which are the after effects of our moral decadence. Like some report by the Transparency International in terms of our corruption ranking. It has shown that in terms of corruption, we are very high in terms of corruption, and this is actually an aftermath of the poor learning at the primary school level and secondary school level. So if we implement education, civics education and history at the primary level and at the secondary school level, this will have a positive impact on the corruption index. So we have we also have other indices at the international level that places Nigeria. If you look at the nations that are peaceful in the world, like Iceland and Zealand, Australia, they are peaceful nations and they don't really have to spend so much money. Why? Because even at in Iceland, they don't even maintain a police force. It's that peaceful. Why? Because of civility in society. People are very civil. So this civil education introduced in the primary level will also impact on the cost of governance. So imagine you don't just litter the floor, or maybe after taking bottled water, the cleaning costs will reduce, and we don't have to, what Lagos State is spending on cleaning will go down significantly. So it's a really major cause for concern for us to not only imbibe civic education and history in our primary curriculum, but to teach it in the right way
and practicalize it for them
not
to see.
Not in the classroom.
I can see. You are just, okay. Let's hear your contribution. I can see that you are just. What is your own position?
Yeah, I think I should start from the way we teach these subjects in our schools. It's so funny when you teach history in the Lagos State school, for example, and you never get to see some historical places in Lagos State. On the face of it, if you pick an history textbook, you are bothered about the number of dates you find there, the number of names you can pronounce, and on the face of it, it's not catchy. But then when you make it practicable, when you take me to these places, there are historical sites there, when you take me to the museum, and you teach me history, not only will I understand history, I would appreciate history. I will give so much value to it. Passing my exam for history will be easier. Not the same stress I going through raising physics and chemistry and biology. It will be easier for me to understand it because I've read it, I've seen it, and I've practicalized it. But for civic education, basically there's no way we teach civic education more than just telling you have to be a man of integrity, you have to be accountable, don't beat the traffic light, don't do this. And it goes beyond that. It goes beyond just telling me how to be. It goes down to matching the realities of the society. So the fact that the society we are, there's a high level of corruption, and they're telling you in school to be a man of integrity. That doesn't help you be a man of integrity just by telling me to be a man of integrity. There has to be some practicality, not by hearsay or talking say. So that's when
you feel it, when you see it, when you practicalize it.
Thank you very much, sir. There's this connection between civic. They shouldn't be taught as abstract. They are not abstract concepts. They are concepts that are meant to aid national development and progress. So you can't just teach it like you're teaching, like you're cramming, and you're just reading for the purpose of an exam. Because basically, when I was in secondary school then, I had some subjects, I just read them so I can pass. You just go, you pick the past question up, look at the questions that have been coming out.
Academic purpose.
Yeah, academic purpose. So we can't be teaching history and civic education for academic purpose. It has to be taught for the purpose of national development.
Into our systemic structure.
It has to be taught to ensure that everybody that has gone through that process is a better citizen. And that is the major reason for this.
So that when I'm talking to Basit as a camera person will understand, you must feel it and practicalize it the way you must give it.
Yes,
so that Fuad can connect in the MCR to say, yes, what Basit is doing, I can connect to have the good resolution in what we do.
Yes,
and Sunday can tell me, no, this is how you sit down, you can make it right this way. Morenike, we must go, but we must have your submissions, gentlemen, on all of this take.
Okay, so my submission today is that yes, there are different policies put in place in line with the Constitution. There's the Universal Basic Education, which provides for the implementation of civic education and history into school curriculums. But there is still a very huge gap between theory and practice.
That's right.
So we need to bridge that gap, and we should provide solutions on how this gap can be bridged. As he rightly said, we should make it more practical. We should teach students not just the theoretical aspects of being a good citizen. Let's take them out onto the streets. Let's teach them, keep your environment clean. We make them volunteer for good causes that actually imbibe patriotism in them. Because if we don't put in the practical aspects of this, then it would bear no fruits, and we would keep going through the same cycle of trying to teach them in classrooms. But we need to understand that it's a larger societal problem. It doesn't just end in the classroom. It goes all the way through generations. So it's very important to imbibe these values at the foundational levels, because it would play a major role throughout an individual's life.
Aduloju, you have a contribution to
Yes,
that.
I do. Basically, flowing from what she has said, it's very important that while we are trying to imbibe these values in our young ones, we should ensure that the activities or our activities as society is not counterproductive. And I'll give you an example. When the school tells my child, do not beat the traffic light, and I as a father am beating the traffic light in the presence of my child, that becomes counterproductive. So it's basic. We all know the society has a very great impact on the young ones. And consider the fact that the way we teach civic education at the moment is not very impactful. So not just should we make civic education be taught in a very impactful manner, we should try and make sure that the society itself is conscious of how we take care or how we relate with the young ones. Don't just do things in the society without looking at the effect that you are a role model to someone or some kid somewhere.
All right, we must go now. A very quick one, sir. I'm told to wrap it up quickly.
Okay, we are gradually approaching election year, and for me, some of our political aspirants, they did not go through this civic education at the primary school level. So I want to recommend that it's not age that should tell us that, okay, you must go through civic education. All political aspirants should have a course, a practical course in civic education and history. And this course should be made practical, not just classroom course for them to get past. So that they won't be talking based on party base. Maybe I'm a member of this party, but they will think more nationally.
They will be more nationalistic in their approach and their thinking.
The impact will be more felt.
Thank you very much, lady and gentlemen. It's nice having you. And we appreciate your contribution this far. We thank you so very much. Well, viewers at home, that's just the voice of the youth there, contributing their quota to understanding the place of history and the value of civic education in our entire systemic structure to make life more meaningful, for us to be better than what we are and who we are as a nation, and more importantly, be patriotic and be nationalistic in our drive and our thinking. Well, we want to thank you for today, and hoping that again, before we wrap this up, we'll take another quick break to be back, and when we come back, we'll just wrap it up to say thank you for today.
Are you worried and concerned about your educational development and interested in building a sound academic education and professional career in accountancy? ASA's Institute of Accountancy and Management here offers you an opportunity for a new beginning. At ASA's Institute of Accountancy and Management, accounting professional students and secondary school leavers can take advantage of our numerous programs to qualify as professional accountants and specialists in different fields of learning. With a conducive learning environment, competent and experienced professional lecturers to see students through their examinations successfully. Classes for secondary school leavers starts in January 2019, while registration is ongoing for foundation and accountancy programs and other professional examination courses. For inquiries and registration, you can visit our corporate office at Niger House, UAC Building, 11th floor, 3 to 5 Odunlami Street, off Marina, Lagos, or email at icanedu@asas.org or our website at www.asasim.org or call 0703 086 8455 0817 079 0833.
That's it for today on the Constitution. Thanking you for being part of this. We hope to see you again sometime next week.
No, love is all we need.